family-owned shop in Loganville, Soesby's Garage for all your automotive repair needs. We service all makes and models, foreign and domestic. We repair engines, alternators, brakes, alignments, AC systems, and more, using certified technicians with over 90 years of combined experience. We also offer same-day service for some repairs. Soesby's Garage, 200 Bay Creek Road in Loganville. Dependable, honest, and fair. Look us up on Google or Facebook. We'll take good care of you.
Broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio inside the Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel. It's time for Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. We are the cornerstone of security in the Southeast.
Hello everyone, how are you? This is Rick Strawn. Welcome to Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. We're coming to you from the Subaru of Gwinnett Atlanta studio, located in the beautiful Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel in Duluth, Georgia. Each week we plan to feature businesses in the Atlanta area, especially those that serve Gwinnett County. While all businesses have security concerns, not all are about physical security, and we will touch on that and related aspects of security through the course of each show. Let me put a little plug in for our sponsor, Soesby's Garage. You ever have anything that you need to do with your car, 200 Bay Creek Road in Loganville, Georgia, call John, 678-825-2127. They are glad and proud to take care of you, and sometimes same-day service is available for some of the repairs. So let me welcome our guest today, and it is Ms. Kerensa Wing, and I think a lot of you probably know her. She is the principal of Collins Hill High School, which is basically the CEO of the high school here in Gwinnett County Public Schools. Hey, Kerensa.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Glad to have you here. I've been wanting to get you on for a while. And, one of the things I like to start out with is tell us a little bit about Kerensa Wing. Where do you come from? Who are you? What got you into what you're doing now, as far as why are you getting into teach? Why did you get into teaching, and then, why did you take on this role?
I'm originally from Cumming, Georgia, so I am a native Georgian and have been probably about fifth generation in that respect.
Fantastic.
So I've lived in this area for a very long time. I went to school locally at Oglethorpe University, and while I was there, while I was in high school too, I loved playing sports, and I really enjoyed working with young people in a coaching respect. And so while I was in college, I decided that I wanted to go into education and coach. So my first job was at Shiloh High School. I was a social studies teacher and basketball and track coach. And I took on my first head coaching role as a second-year teacher. I became the head track coach at Shiloh. And
awesome.
That led me into being the first head basketball coach at Collins Hill High School when they opened. So those were some of my early leadership roles. And eventually I decided I was going to start a family. I got married at 23 and waited till about 30 before the...
Smart lady. See, there's that education thing.
Well, I think it was more I was trying to get the coaching out of my system. So, I gave up the coaching aspect whenever I had my children. And from there, my husband decided to start his own business, and I took the opportunity to go back to school and get my leadership degree, and chose to go into administration because I wanted to make sure we could make the ends meet while he was starting his own business. So that's how I ended up in administration. But I love working with people. And so I know I'm not coaching a sport anymore. I kind of look at my job as being able to coach individuals and helping them become better educators.
Good way to look at it.
So that's kind of how I see my role in the school is really trying to help both our teachers and our students grow.
Well, I know that, and I said it a while ago, and it's really serious. I've been principal today with you at Collins Hill and at several of the other schools too. But you really have a job as a CEO. That is what you do when you're a principal in a school, and a lot of people don't realize that there are a tremendous number of facets that go into being a principal. You have to do all your evaluations of all your staff, and you have a staff of how many?
240.
Yeah, and I think mine bad. But that's a lot of people to have to oversee basically and make sure that they're all doing their job, because there's a lot at stake when you're dealing with kids.
Right.
And I know that area of it is very important to you. When you go through a typical day of being a principal, like there's a typical day of being a principal, how does your day start? What's usually the first thing? Well, I know the first thing you do is well, no, I won't say that. Go ahead.
The first part of my day, if I don't have a 6:30 parent meeting, because we start early, is I typically come in, kind of get things settled in the office, check in with my assistant, make sure there's no surprises that I don't know about for the day yet. And I'm on duty in the cafeteria as kids get off the bus. I greet students. The teachers know I'm there, so if they want to come by and ask me something real quick, they know my location for the morning, typically. I do the morning announcements, and then from there, it's just a myriad of different things. I try to get out into a lot of classrooms so I can see the teachers in action, and, that the kids are engaged in learning what they need to learn. And it's there's a lot of management by walking around. I try to be visible in the building so the kids know who I am and I know them, and the same with the teachers.
Well, I noticed that when I was with you. There's amazing how many of these kids know you. What's more amazing is how many of the kids you know by name. And you have a large school. You've got how many kids now? We've
got about 2,900, and I wish I knew more of their names, but I do know a good number of them, and especially as they stay in the school over the course of 4 years. I really probably know our senior class best by the end of every year.
I would think so. You've
because
seen
I've had
them.
some time with them.
Yeah, well, I know my son went there back in the day, and he loved Collins Hill. My daughter went there. She loved Collins Hill. So, yeah, and my son-in-law teaches there under you, so we've got kind of a connection with Collins Hill. We live up the street. So, one of the things that amazes me is, we talk about the role of principal leadership in student and school success. What do you really consider not really consider, what is your role in that area?
I think there's kind of two areas that are kind of large rocks, I guess you could say, in my role as the school leader. One is building school culture, and that takes a lot of interaction and collaboration with both the students, the community, the teachers, to really make sure we've got a positive culture and that they know that our purpose of being there is teaching and learning. And yes, we've got a lot of other activities that go on, but that's kind of the core of what we do. And having that learning environment be positive every day is incredibly important for our students. The other part is leading learning. So, you have to have a good school culture, but I also am a lead learner in our building and trying to make sure that our teachers are trained well, and even our custodial and cafeteria support staff, because they play a critical role in our students having a great day too.
Oh, absolutely. They interact a lot with them too.
Yeah, they do. The kids go to the same lunch line every day. They know they check out with the same person when they're getting their lunch, and that interaction is important. I would say our bus drivers know our kids sometimes better than we do, because they see where they're getting on the bus in the morning and what kind of day they're having, and they're our first interaction. So there's a lot of support personnel that really goes into that as well. And I don't know that everybody always thinks about training those groups and individuals, but that's part of what we do too.
Well, I know that you also have periods during the day when you may meet with the different departments that they have. I can't think of what do you call it when you have the...
We have collaborative course team meetings.
Yep.
So our teachers meet together by subject area, and they meet at least once a week in smaller teams. So like geometry will meet, they'll work on planning lessons, developing common assessments so that they can tell if the kids are, learning what they need to learn, and do those frequent checks. And really work on making sure that it's not teaching's not an isolated event. So making sure that our kids are having a similar experience regardless of what teacher's classroom that they're in.
And I think that coming together with that consistency, I think is the best word. That consistency among the teachers, the approach that they take. Every teacher has their own way of doing it, per se, but they're all focused on the same end result. And so the consistency, I think, is important for the kids.
Yes, it's very important.
And that's something, I guess, that you kind of you focus on keeping that consistency there.
Right. So we really look at student performance, what's the variability between classrooms. I encourage the teachers to be creative in how they attack those specific issues. I mean, I'm okay with them combining classes if one person's better at teaching that particular topic than another. Sometimes we do a flipped classroom where we'll record a lesson and let the kids watch it, and then they'll do practice in the classroom with teacher support. So there's a lot of different strategies that we're able to incorporate and try to play to teachers' strengths.
Well, that's a lot different than when I went to school, and probably you went to school. There's a lot that working and that flexibility. It wasn't there then. You just had one teacher. They always taught the same way. They always taught the same subject, and it seemed like day to day it was pretty much the same all the way through, which really kind of got boring.
Yeah.
Especially if you were able to assimilate what they were saying fairly quickly. Then, and I noticed we talked about before we came on. One thing that's interesting is how the instructors and in fact you too, where you'll go into a situation where they'll have, you have a classroom with X number of students in it with a teacher, and you've got people that have very little need, and then you have people with a greater need to get the same information and absorb the same subject matter that's there. But you have to be able to spread that attention, because even though they don't need a lot of attention maybe to learn, they still need a lot of the support to nurture the growth and keep them interested in perhaps even helping some of the other students. And then that you also have to give a lot of the attention to the ones that really are struggling to get the subject matter and get it down. So you have to find that balance.
Right.
And I think that's probably one of the areas that you're really good at, is helping people find that balance.
I will say we've got some great instructional leaders at Collins Hill and some great teachers that are in the classroom that help share their best practices with other teachers, and I think that's what makes us stronger. People don't realize the dynamics of teaching. They're not only delivering and executing the lessons, but they're also planning them and developing them. And in a corporate setting, I've been to a couple of different places. I've visited Huraeus and looked at some of their staff development. I've been to Home Depot University, and they have a whole team of people that are developing their training programs separate from the people that are facilitating and delivering the training programs. Yeah. So, that combination of having teachers do both of those aspects is kind of unique, I think, it's to the business world. So, they really have to think through, what are the strategies I'm going to use? How am I going to differentiate the lesson so that a high-level learner can extend on the lesson, and then I can also provide support to those students that are struggling with the concept. So they really have some best practices that we use with collaborative teams within the classroom. Sometimes it's station work where the teacher's working with some specific students on a particular area, whether it's an extension or a mediation type situation, but really thinking through, what does that class period look like, and how do I try to touch all of those learners?
I think that's really important. That's one of the reasons why with our training academy, our instructor, state certified instructor he's responsible for developing the material, developing the whole program from beginning to end. And that way, when he gives it, he instructs it, he has developed it, so he has such a much deeper understanding of how to get the point across and how to work with people. Because even with adults, when you get a classroom full of people wanting to come to work as a security officer, you have a lot of different levels of ability to understand and ability to comprehend. So he has to work with all those too, very much like what you're talking about with your instructors. And I think it's awesome that you can manage to collaborate and get that done. It's terrific.
It's easier for teachers if they've taught the class more than a year. The first year is usually a lot of intensive prep on their part.
They have learning too.
Yeah, because they've got learning to do as well, and figuring out how to best present that, and what do the kids respond to best with different concepts. So, we do try to keep teachers in a specific area to let them have time to grow and mature with the courses that they're teaching.
And then the great thing about it is, after they spent that first year, they get the next year, and they get to start all over again. New group.
They have new students.
For the whole new group.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I'd really like to hear about is, you got the National Association of Secondary School Principals, and you were you brought quite an honor to yourself and back to our county as being Principal of the Year nationally. And that is just, I hate to use the word, but awesome. That was a terrific accomplishment. And what kind of opportunities does that afford, bring back to our state, our county, your school?
It really is a school award. I know it's my name on the trophy, but
absolutely,
it really is a reflection of the work that my staff has done and the performance that my students have had.
What you promoted, getting them to grow and do.
Right. So that's the cool thing, is it is a great award for our school and our school district. And so what it affords me the opportunity to do is I get to travel around the country this year and go to different, educational training conferences. I'll be presenting at a variety of those. I'll also have 3 times that I get to go up to Washington, D.C. For advocacy efforts with our
Going
legislators.
to the White House?
I haven't got an invitation to the White House yet.
I'll see if I can arrange
All right,
that.
that'd be great. So I'm making appointments with, the senators and congressmen, and just really trying to make sure that they're hearing our on-the-ground perspective of educational legislation that's coming up, and trying to help them see how that would actually work, and trying to make sure that whatever they mandate, that they're funding those mandates, because I think that's probably one of the biggest problems in education are unfunded mandates. They don't realize sometimes when they make a law that what that impact's going to be and what the end result's going to be, because sometimes, like with IDEA, I think that's an absolutely appropriate law, but the hours that you have to take in tracking data on students and making sure that, you're providing them that individualized plan is very time consuming. So making sure that we're staffing our schools appropriately to support the laws that they're creating.
Well, and there are, I think a lot of businesses come into that unfunded mandate thing that, the people that make the laws get together and they say, well, this really sounds cool. Mm-hmm. This is a great idea. And it may be a great idea, but they don't think through the whole process of what is the end result going to be, the cost not to us, to the government, right, to the people, but to the actual people when it floats down to the end of it.
Right.
And sometimes that can really outweigh the good idea. You can have better. So you get to travel through the whole nation, mm-hmm, and
it's really by invitation. So NASSP, the organization that gave me the award, there's several things that I'm doing on their behalf at the national conference. And I'll go to their national conference. I'll be at their advocacy week in March. We've got a public schools week that we're celebrating at the end of February, so I'll kind of be the face for a lot of those different events, and I'm excited about the opportunity and just to be able to share the great processes and systems and schools that we have in Gwinnett County. I think we've been very forward thinking with our connection and partnership with the Wallace Foundation, mm-hmm, and training principals and school leaders. And that's not something that happens around the nation necessarily. And having those well-trained school principals helps them stay in the seat longer, be successful with a very complicated job. And, really, I think sometimes that stability and longevity in the seat of principal really helps a school be successful.
Well, I've noticed some of the schools seem to change their principals around a little more often than I would think would be really a good idea. Mm-hmm. But Gwinnett County seems to kind of adopted that. They're there for several years at any given school before they end up moving, and usually, a lot of times if they do move, it's upward. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that probably has to do with just the system as a whole and the type of system that's allowed to develop under our superintendent. We've had a lot of success with Mr. Wilbanks.
Yes, and we're very fortunate to have the longest serving superintendent in the nation. He's been with the school district for 24 years, and regardless of if you agree with all of his policies or not, the stability and knowing that where we're headed, what's our vision and mission, What are we going to be supported on? Knowing the parameters of the operations side and knowing what's expected is huge in giving us the stability to be able to be creative and innovative.
Well, you have that there again. You have a consistency, and he's been very consistent on his approach. And it's something that a lot of school systems really don't get. The wind blows one way, he doesn't necessarily bend to it.
Right.
And that's been an absolutely fantastic thing for the school system in Gwinnett. I know I've talked to a lot of people that have moved to Gwinnett, and one of the primary reasons, well, just like we were when our kids were small, one of the primary reasons we chose Gwinnett was the school system.
Right.
And a lot of parents, most parents I think, like to think that that's what they're looking for. But then you look at where they move and you think, well, gosh, that system's got a lot of issues. But the people in Gwinnett, I've heard very little negativity with regards to anything that's gone on with the Gwinnett school system. It's some of the things that they could do better in. I know that there's several schools that do really well with the autistic. I've got an autistic grandson.
Right.
And they had a hard time dealing with him. And that's a whole other story we could get into, so we won't. But, it's just a matter of, for the most part, I think they really do a good job for the special needs kids in this school system.
I would say that Gwinnett County Schools has one of the best special education departments, I guess, countywide that I've seen. And yes, we do put a lot of resources into that area.
Well, I think it's fantastic. And I know empowering students to take charge of their learning and various opportunities that your students are afforded through different learning models and student leadership is important. And how do y'all address all that? How do y'all get that going?
Well, we've across the school district, I would say we've got a lot of different options for students. We've got, high schools that are focused on technology, high schools that are college and career focused, like with the New McClure Medical Healthcare Science School. We've got, the Paul Duke School of Technology. And within our schools, there's many schools that have an academy model where they're focused on career pathways that students can choose from. At Collins Hill specifically, we have a STEM program that we've developed. It's called RISE, Reimagining Innovation Through Science and Engineering, and we just received state STEM certification for that back in May.
Terrific.
So we've got about 300 students, so about 10% of our population is in the program, and it's a project-based learning program where they really are taking their learning and applying it to projects that they're working on that are then presented publicly at some point during the school year. And they end that experience with either a dual enrollment class in the area of their focused interest or an internship work-based learning experience in that arena. So we're really trying to make sure that they have those connections as they go into college for whatever their passion is. And really our pathways at this point in that program are computer science, engineering, and video film. Because those are some big
Video
needs.
film industry is on the rise like crazy.
Yes, it is.
We do some work with Georgia Entertainment, and one of the biggest increases and the biggest booms going on right now is the video gaming industry.
Right.
The people talking about it becoming an Olympic thing, and wow. That's odd.
And we've got a big group of kids that are lobbying for an esports team, so we're looking at trying to do that next year because it is a GHSA sport now.
Exactly. So
it is growing by leaps and bounds, and it's obviously very engaging for the students.
Oh, absolutely. Let them channel some of that stuff that they like to do into something that might actually benefit them in the long run.
And I think that's probably kind of where our student leadership program comes in, is we really do try to let students have a key voice at Collins Hill and how we do things. And we've got a Collins Hill leadership team that's over 100 students strong. They do a lot of mentoring and tutoring throughout our building, especially with our underclassmen, to help them transition to high school. We've got some programs where they have like one mentor for every 2 students that, looking at their data, we think that they're probably going to struggle as they come into high school, to help them be successful that first 9th grade year and really help them get off to a good start. And that program's been pretty successful. We also have a Chick-fil-A Leader Academy. So any outside resource I can bring in to help provide student leadership training, I do. We have, we're a part of the Gwinnett Student Leadership team with the Chamber of Commerce. So we have 9 students that receive training, and they bring that back, and we offer Saturday student leadership summits. We're doing a service summit, and on March 21st, there'll be a leadership aspect and service projects. So really that we look at servant leadership and try to get students involved with that.
Well, I know the STEM programs are really well developed within our county, and they've really taken on well. You got Maxwell and some of those other things. Do you see an increase in student activity or school activity with regards to things like the shop, the targeting of skills in that type of an area versus the academic? Because you got some kids that are going to be going on to college and universities that are great. Then you've got some students that really would be, our need is so great in those areas of the mechanics and stuff like that. Where do you see it going in the long run?
I think we did go really towards full-on, everybody's going to be prepared for college. And I think the reason Gwinnett County Public Schools made that decision was so that students had an option, that they weren't, those decisions weren't made in 10th grade and they were finalized and then they didn't have the option of going to college. I think our university and technical education systems have changed a good bit since that decision. So I think, a student can go to a 2-year college, get a technical degree, and, come out and make more money sometimes than somebody that gets a university degree. I don't know that our high schools have responded. We're trying. It just takes time. It's an expensive endeavor whenever you're trying to shift facilities in order to do some of that training. But we do have the new Dan Seckinger High School that's going to open to relieve Mill Creek. That's going to have an artificial intelligence focus. We've got some megatronics going in for pathways at some of our high schools. So we do have a heavy focus on robotics in a lot of our STEM programs. So I do think that we're working towards that. We don't have as many auto mechanics and those types of things that you traditionally think of with a comprehensive high school. Most of those are housed at Maxwell and Grayson Technical Schools.
And they do a fantastic job of it.
And they do, but we probably have more kids that would like to do that than can get in there.
Absolutely. And that's why I was wondering if we were maybe in our county going to develop more in that area. And, it's like you say, it's a process. And the need is getting there, and most of the time, and it's unfortunate, but it's life, we're a little slower than the need is to catch up.
Right.
But the need pushes us into those directions.
And I do think that Mr. Wilbanks has a lot of connections with the business community and the Chamber of Commerce, and that we do try to think forward and what types of training our students going to need in the future. And really, we don't know what kind of jobs they're going to have in 10 years. So our big push has been problem solving, critical thinking, teaching them the engineering design process, teaching them about design thinking processes so that they know how to collaborate and adapt.
Adapt was the word I was just thinking of, because that's something that's going to be big, especially in the AI industry. That's going to be a really big thing as we're moving forward.
Right.
And all the computer technology is advancing so rapidly that being able to think critically is going to be extremely important. And that's where you learn on stuff like, it's not like when I went to school, I took the idea of maybe going into law, I took 3 years of Latin.
Right.
And I'm wondering, how did I pass? I have no clue how I passed 3 years of Latin other than a good girlfriend. But, it's not as important necessarily to take 3 years of Latin as it is to really get into this other stuff to where, now it did help my English tremendously. I'll give it that. So, but there are certain areas and certain methods I think that are stronger today, much stronger than were back in the day when I went to school and when you went to school. And that development is going to help us out a lot with these kids. And we've already talked about some of the innovations in our schools. Is there anything else that's going on with the innovation process that comes to mind with you?
No, I think I hit on most of the ones that we've used, other than just some different models for schooling. We have, of course, Gwinnett Online Campus in Gwinnett County Public Schools, so kids have an online option, and any student can apply to go there. We have, within our schools, a lot of us are doing a hybrid model for some of our junior and senior level classes. So they'll have a portion that's online and a portion of the week that they're showing up in class face-to-face. And really what we're looking for is the capability for them to learn time management and that transition to a college, university type system and that responsibility. So just working on some of those skills that will help them be successful as they transition into college and life. So we try to provide some different platforms, I guess you could say, for their learning, and that's the student choice very often.
Well, and that's important. The importance of business connections. I know that you, in the way that community support in our schools is something that we've striven for and strived for in Gwinnett County, with the Chamber's Principal for the Day, bringing that business community in there, letting them understand. But also there's a benefit to the school of helping them understand more about the business community, that getting back and forth. So how do y'all look at that?
I see it as an incredibly important partnership, not just, yes, we ask for monetary support sometimes or volunteers and things of that nature when we're working with our businesses. But really, to me, the advice that I can get from business owners about what types of skills they need workers to have is a very important, because we want to be able to help our students, get a secure job once they leave us, because very often our students, being kind of middle class, are going to be working their way through college. Exactly. So we want them to leave with employability skills. We want them to have good speaking skills. We want them to be able to engage with others.
The soft skills.
The soft skills. So we do have advisory boards. We have an advisory board for our Career Technical Education Department. We have one for our STEM program. We have a business advisory board that works with our counseling team. So we really do try to pull in connections and meet on a fairly regular basis to get input. It also helps us with connections for our work-based learning and our internships, because we want our students to be out in businesses so that they get that experience, and the businesses can give us feedback on, are we educating them to the level that you need, so that we can have a symbiotic relationship.
And I can assure you, from the business side, it's very important for us to get in there, learn how it's working in the schools, what y'all are doing. A lot of people come into the system and they have really no clue what a principal does. They sit in their office and they principal. And it's amazing to go through a day with a principal. And I've noticed that I don't care what school you go to, the day is basically the same. It is a nonstop, interactive participation day in what's going on with you, just like you should be doing in your business. It should be a nonstop, interactive participation and knowing what's going on in your business. Right. So it's a good learning process both ways.
I agree.
And I think I love doing it, and I think it's one of the best things that this county's ever done. Developing a strong cohort of teacher in our colleges, universities, and alternative certificate programs. Mouthful.
Yes. Well, we have a good, strong core group of teachers, but I will say that, as during the recession, we had kind of a more, when they were making reductions in the teaching force because of, state budget issues, that we did some colleges and universities closed their education programs, and so we didn't have a push for students and young people to go into teaching. So I think that's something that we're really advocating for now, and we want that to be on the rise, because we want a good pool of candidates to be teachers. We do have alternative certification programs, and we do have a need for people in our buildings that have industry experience. So I would just put that out there if you're interested in teaching, and we especially need areas like computer science, engineering, science backgrounds. I think, I know the pay structure is not always conducive to someone in those industries wanting to go into the classroom, and that's something that I think, we are looking at.
It's like police work. You don't do it for the money.
Right, and you don't do it for the money. So if you have a passion for working with young adults, I would say those are areas that we definitely have a need for teachers in. And we do have ways to be able to, if you can pass a certification test and you have a 4-year degree and industry background, then as a principal, I'm willing, if you love teenagers and love working with young people to help them develop in a certain area, I'm willing to help you work through a certification process.
That's fantastic. Well, I could talk all day with you about the school system. I love Gwinnett County schools. But I guess we better kind of look at wrapping it up. But that's a good segue into, you say contact. How would somebody go about contacting you or others if they're interested in teaching, or just if they want to ask questions or participate, volunteer, do something? How would they contact you or the school system?
If you're interested in a teaching profession, our human resources department does a great job of kind of walking people through that process and helping support them in that arena. I would say most principals are usually pretty responsive when somebody reaches out and says, hey, I want to be involved in some way. And we try to look at somebody's talents and figure out what's the best, connection or spot for them to be able to get them in the door and help them start that process. We do have a STEM resident program that we've been doing for the last couple of years, where we have at 4 of our high schools, we have people in the science, technology, engineering, math areas where we bring them in, and they actually get to kind of have a student teaching experience for a year while we're training them, and we see if it's a good fit both ways. So that's positions that we have, and then those people are hired not at my school but at somebody else's school in the county. So I have one of those training programs where I have 2 STEM residents on campus each year, and that's helpful as well.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, I hope some people take advantage of it, because there's a lot of people out here, I think, that really would like to do it but really don't know how to do it and how to get involved, and I think that's an excellent way to do it. Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
I really appreciate it. We'll have to do this again when some things change.
Yeah.
After you've had a few more trips and I get you in the White House. Just a quick shout out again for Sotheby's Garage out in Loganville, Georgia, 200 Bay Creek, 678-825-2127. They service all makes and models, foreign and domestic. So, and I can tell you this, they're the most honest people I've ever found in this type of business. I have all my cars serviced there, and we've got a fleet of about 14 or 15 now. So, the main thing is, I want to thank everybody for joining us on Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security. Remember, you can join us live every Wednesday at 11:30 in the morning. Or you can listen to our radio show anytime you want by going to businessradiox.com, clicking on the Gwinnett Studio, and then click on Case in Point. Join us next week at 11:30. We will talk with business leaders about their businesses, related security issues in today's world. And I want to say thanks again to my guest, Kerensa Wing, our National Principal of the Year. I can't get to say that enough. And for our producer, Mike. And again, I'm Rick Strawn. And remember, Paradigm Security Services, we cover more than just your assets.